Dear students, today we are going to deal with common law remedies and environmental protection in India. The basic objectives of the lesson are to understand the common law provisions and the torts relating to environmental law, to understand the role of common law remedies towards environmental protection, to understand the laws relating to environment in IPC, to understand CRPC provisions relating to environment protection. Common law and environment. The common law is a body of customary law of England which is based upon judicial decisions. It continues to be in force in India under Article 372 of Constitution of India and has not been altered, modified or repealed by the statutory laws. The development of environmental laws owes a great deal to common law. In the late 19th century, torts like negligence, trespass and the rule of strict liability in Ryland versus Fletcher were developed and significantly applied to environmental protection. The common law remedies against the environmental pollution are available under the law of torts. Tort is a civil wrong other than the breach of trust or contract. Any tortious action results in damage to property, person or reputation of another person, and the affected party can claim damages, compensation or injunction or both. The most important tortious liabilities for environmental pollution are nuisance, trespass, negligence and strict liability. Nuisance. Nuisance means anything which annoys, hurts or that which is offensive. It may be in the form of obnoxious smells, noise, fumes, air or water pollution due to the effluent discharge, or it may be any kind of obstruction which interferes with the right of the person to which he is otherwise entitled for exclusive use. Trespass. There are two essential ingredients which are required to be proved for constituting the tort of trespass. They must be intentional or negligent interference with the personal or proprietary right, and such interference must be direct rather than consequential. For example, when A throws garbage on B's land, or when A discharges effluents from the factory on the land belonging to B, intentionally or negligently, it amounts to trespass. Negligence. Negligence may also be used as a cause of action to address environmental harm. To plead negligence, the person bringing the action, the plaintiff, must be able to prove that the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care. The defendant breached this duty and this breach of duty caused damage to the plaintiff. Certain rules, principles were developed by the court to deal with torts related problems. First, let us deal with the rule of strict liability. The rule of strict liability was formulated in 1868 by the House of Lords in Ryland versus Fletcher. In Ryland versus Fletcher case, the defendant got a reservoir constructed through independent contractors over his land for providing water to his mill. They were old disused shafts under the site of the reservoir which the contractors failed to observe and so did not block them. When the water was filled in the reservoir, it burst through the shafts and flooded the plaintiff's coal mines on the adjoining land. The defendants did not know of the shafts. Even though the defendants had not been negligent, they were held liable on the basis of the rule laid down in this case. The rule is, if a person brings on his land anything which is likely to do mischief, if it escapes, he will be prima facie answerable for the damage caused by its escape, though he had not been negligent. The rule is applicable not only when there has been collection of water, it applies to gas, electricity, vibration, yew trees, sewages, explosives, noxious fumes and rusty wire. For the application of the rule of strict liability, there must be dangerous thing, escape of it, non-natural use of land. There are few exceptions to the rule. Plaintiff's own default, damage caused by the escape due to the plaintiff's own negligence, that is not taking due reasonable care, was considered to be a good defense in Ryland versus Fletcher itself. Act of God, another defense. If the escape has been unforeseen and because of supernatural forces without any human intervention, and the damage due to the escape cannot be avoided in spite of the reasonable care, the defense of act of God can be pleaded. Next defense is consent of the plaintiff. In case of volenti non fit injuria, that is, where the plaintiff has consented to the accumulation of the dangerous thing on the defendant's land, the liability under the rule does not arise. Next defense is that of act of third party. If the harm has been caused due to the act of a stranger who is neither the defendant's servant nor agent nor any person on whom the defendant has any control, the defendant will not be liable under the rule. The last defense is that of statutory authority. An act done under the authority of a statute is also a defense when an action under the rule in Ryland versus Fletcher is brought. The rule of absolute liability. The rule of strict liability, formulated in the 19th century in accordance with the social and economic conditions prevailing at that time, was subject to certain exceptions, but it was not considered to be a fit rule to be applied in the conditions prevailing in the present times in India. Hence, in addition to these categories, the Supreme Court of India has added a new class based on the principle of absolute liability. There was leakage of oleum gas from one of the units of Shriram Food Fertilizer Industries in the city of Delhi on 4th and 6th December 1985, resulting in the death of an advocate and causing ill effects in the premises. There was claim of compensation through a writ petition filed in the Supreme Court by way of public interest litigation. The court found that victims of the leakage of dangerous substances like that could not be provided relief by applying the rule of strict liability laid down in Ryland versus Fletcher. This was so mainly because of the various exceptions to that rule whereby the defendant could avoid his liability. The Supreme Court in M.C. Mehta versus Union of India recognized rule of absolute liability, in which the liability was absolute, more stringent than that under the strict liability rule, and also not subject to the exceptions to the rule in Ryland versus Fletcher. According to this rule, when an enterprise is engaged in a hazardous or inherently dangerous industry which poses a potential threat to the health and safety to persons, it owes an absolute and non-delegable duty to ensure that no harm results to anyone from such activity. The common law remedies. The common law offers various remedies which will be sought by the plaintiff depending upon the particular circumstances of each case. People approach the court for a remedy. As defined in Black's Law Dictionary, a remedy is the means by which a right is enforced or the violation of a right is prevented, redressed or compensated. The two main remedies available to the victim of a tort are legal remedies, damages, and equitable remedies. Each remedy is discussed as under damages. The object of damages in the law of tort is to put the plaintiff into the position he would have been in prior to the harm done to him or to his property. This is particularly difficult to calculate in relation to environmental pollution because the pollution causing elements or pollutants spread and it is difficult to measure or calculate the intensity of the harm immediately. The harm may be done immediately or sometimes it takes years to destroy health. In a legal sense, damages refers to monetary compensation that is claimed by a person or awarded by a court in a civil action to a person who has been injured or suffered loss because of the wrongful conduct of another party. The Supreme Court of Canada has held damages are a monetary payment awarded for the invasion of a right at common law in Canson Enterprises Limited versus Botan and Company. There are different types of damages. In order to provide compensation, different damages at appropriate situations are awarded by the court, which are mentioned hereunder. The first one is nominal damages. Nominal damages are very small damages awarded to show that the loss or harm suffered was punishable and hence they are awarded. Compensatory damages. Most awards of damages are intended to be purely compensatory for physical harm to person or property. Tort law also requires that the defendant compensate the plaintiff for pain and suffering. Next damages is aggravated damages. These damages are awarded where the court wishes to express disapproval of the defendant's conduct and compensate the plaintiff who has suffered. Punitive and exemplary damages, very important part. These damages are awarded where it is the court's intention to punish the tortfeasor by adding an additional award onto the compensatory damages awarded, which may also have the effect of deterring others from acting in a similar fashion. The next kind of remedies are equitable remedies. The equitable remedies are explained as injunction. This is a court order by which an individual is required to perform or is restrained from performing a particular act. Injunctions can be preliminary or temporary injunctions. These are temporary in nature and intended to provide immediate relief to the party concerned, and it is applicable only till further orders of the court are issued. Preventive injunction. An injunction directing an individual to refrain from doing an act which is preventive, prohibitive, prohibitory or negative. This type of injunction prevents a threatened injury. Mandatory injunction. The court issues a mandatory injunction commanding the performance of a positive act. Because mandatory injunctions are very strict, courts do not favor them and they rarely grant them. Prohibitory injunction. The plaintiff may apply for the interim or interlocutory injunction which would prevent the offending action being continued pending the arguments of a full hearing. Permanent injunctions. A permanent or perpetual injunction is one that is granted by the judgment that ultimately disposes of the injunction suit ordered at the time of final judgment. This type of injunction is in the form of final relief. Permanent injunctions are perpetual provided that the conditions that produce them remain permanent. Abatement. The remedy of abatement dates back many years, although it is rarely used today as the courts do not encourage its use. Under the common law, abatement is known as self-help remedy. In Smith versus Giddy, it was held that the plaintiff was entitled to cut back the overhanging branches of his neighbor's ash and elm trees, which were damaging the growth of his fruit trees. Statutory authority. If the tort has been authorized by a statute, then this will provide a complete defense and will not allow the injured party to recover damages. The exact application of the defense of statutory authority will depend on the statute in question. Voluntary non-fit injuria, meaning literally no injury is done to a person who consents. The defense of non-fit injuria can be pleaded by the defendant. In order for this defense to succeed, the plaintiff must voluntarily provide his consent for any risk. Bhopal Gas Leak disaster case can be dealt under this Union Carbide Corporation versus Union of India. On December 3, 1984, just after midnight, 40 tons of highly toxic methyl isocyanate, which had been manufactured and stored in Union Carbide's chemical plant in Bhopal, escaped into atmosphere and killed over 3,500 people, and as many as 2 lakh others were injured, many seriously and some permanently. The Supreme Court secured a compromise between the Union Carbide Corporation and the Government of India. Under the settlement, the Union Carbide Corporation agreed to pay $470 million in full and final settlement of all present and future claims arising out of Bhopal disaster. Now let us deal with the environmental provisions under the Indian Penal Code 1860. The aim of Chapter 14 is to safeguard the public health, safety and convenience by causing those acts punishable that make environment polluted or threaten the life of the people. Section 268 of the Indian Penal Code defines public nuisance, and Section 290 provides for punishment for public nuisance in cases not otherwise provided for. Thus, under these provisions, any act or omissions of a person which caused injury to another person by polluting the environment can be controlled. Under Section 268 of IPC, inter alia, noise pollution can also be controlled. Sections 269 to 271 make a negligent act likely to spread infection of disease dangerous to life punishable. The punishment provided for such act is imprisonment up to 6 months or with fine or with both. Thus, if the pollution is caused by any act which spreads the infection of disease dangerous to life, punishing the person who is responsible for such act can control the same. Sections 272 to 276 deal with the adulteration of food, drinks and drugs. Section 277 can be used to prevent the water pollution in certain cases. This section provides that fouling of water, public spring, well or reservoir, rendering it less fit for purposes for which it is ordinarily used shall be punishable with imprisonment up to 3 months or with fine up to ₹500 or with both. Now, the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 also deals with some provisions relating to environmental protection. The provisions of Criminal Procedure Code 1973 can also be invoked to prevent the pollution of almost all kinds. Chapter 10th, Part B containing sections 133 to 143 and Part C having section 144 can provide most effective and speedy remedy for preventing and controlling public nuisance causing air, water and noise pollution. Under section 133 of the CRPC, the district magistrate or subdivisional magistrate or executive magistrate, if he is so empowered by the state government, on the receipt of report from police officer or other information, may make conditional order to remove public nuisance causing pollution. The conditional order may be made absolute, and if the person concerned fails to carry it out, he can be prosecuted under section 188 of the IPC. Certain cases can be dealt under this provisions. Ratlam municipality versus Vadichand. In this case, the residents of the municipality used to suffer from stench and stink caused by open drains, effluents from alcohol plant flowing into streets and poor sanitation including open public excretion by nearby slum dwellers. The residents requested the magistrate under section 133 of CRPC. The magistrate issued directions to the municipality to draft a plan for the removal of nuisance within a period of 6 months. The municipality, instead of complying with the order of the magistrate, moved an appeal to Sessions Court which reversed the order of the magistrate. In further appeal, the High Court set aside the order of the Sessions Court and approved the magistrate's order. The municipality went for further appeal to the Supreme Court. From trial court to Supreme Court it took 8 years, and the municipality took the plea of financial inability in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, speaking through Justice Krishna Iyer, rejected the plea of the municipality and held that the Code of Criminal Procedure operates against the statutory bodies and others regardless of the cash in their coffers. Justice Krishna Iyer rightly pointed out that had the municipal council and its executive officers spent half this litigative zeal on cleaning up the streets and constructing the drains by rousing the people's need, might have been largely met long ago. Accordingly, the Supreme Court directed the municipality to provide for drainage system within 1 year, stop effluents from alcohol plant into the streets and improve other sanitary conditions. Another case is of Indian Council for Enviro Legal Action versus Union of India. In this case, the Supreme Court held when certain industries by the discharge from the acid producing plants cause environmental pollution, it amounts to violation of right to life enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution. In such cases also, the rule of absolute liability is applicable. Such industries have to pay compensation and also undertake remedial measures for restoring to pollution-free environment, and can also be shut down when they are not abiding by the rules established under this principle. Another case of B. Venkatappa versus B. Lovis. In this case, the appellant had constructed a chimney with its holes projecting towards the respondent side. The respondent complained that the smoke and fumes, the chimney, was causing injury to his health and discomfort in the enjoyment of the property. The Supreme Court in this case expressed the view that in matters of this nature, what was involved was not merely the right of a private individual, but the health, safety and convenience of the public at large. The Supreme Court directed the appellant to demolish the oven and chimney within a month, but allowed him to practice his trade. P.C. Sherian versus State of Kerala. In this case, it was alleged that the petitioners, who were owners of rubber factories, failed to provide the necessary equipments to prevent the dissemination of carbon black, with the result that the excess carbon black got into the atmosphere and settled over the neighboring area and caused discomfort, injury and nuisance to the people, and even prevented them from attending to their avocations. The court held in this case that the subdivisional magistrate was well within jurisdiction to invoke the provisions of section 133 of CRPC to abate public nuisance. The deposit of carbon black amounts to public nuisance under section 268 of IPC, which can be stopped by issuing appropriate order under section 133 of CRPC. Another case was of Ajit Mehta versus State of Rajasthan. It was complained by the petitioner that the business involving loading, unloading and stocking of fodder had become serious health hazard to the residents of the locality. The city magistrate passed the order under section 133 of CRPC directing to remove the said business within 15 days from that place. The Rajasthan High Court supported the order of the magistrate. I would like to conclude. According to Frederick Hayek, the English common law system reflects a conscious decision in favor of a limited role for government. The French civil law system is much more comfortable with a centralized and activist government. The first fundamental problem associated with the use of common law to secure environmental protection is that it cannot prevent damage to the environment. Its purpose instead is to compensate the owner of the land affected. The common law principles suit better for the protection of environment and hence are still recognized as having a legitimate role in protecting environment. Dear students, this session we were dealing with the common law remedies and environmental protection. In the next chapters to come, we will be dealing with the international regime of environmental protection and various other statutory laws designed and made for the purpose of environmental protection. These laws will be dealt according to the concept, and I hope that you have enjoyed this session. Thank you.